Many people over 60 years old start experiencing problems they didn't used to have. Lower back pain, difficulty climbing stairs, knee discomfort, and more. The issue is that many have normalized this as something inevitable, an age-related consequence. The fact is, it absolutely shouldn't be this way. These problems are frequently the result of doing the wrong type of exercise or no exercise at all. The truth is, at this stage of life, we have enough experience to know that evolution isn't about doing everything or doing more, but rather doing what works in a suitable way. That's why today you'll see not only 4 exercises that can cause problems for people over 60, but also 4 safer, smarter options that will target the same muscles without straining your joints. But before we begin, please leave in the comments your name and the city where you're watching our content from. Exercise number 1. Deep squats. The knee villain. The deep squat, where you lower yourself until your thighs are parallel to the floor or even lower, is frequently celebrated as the king of exercises for the legs. And rightfully so, it works practically all the lower body muscles. However, after 60 years of age, this exercise can become a real villain for your joints. With natural aging, our knees begin to show cartilage wear, a reduction of synovial fluid that lubricates the joints, and in many cases, some degree of osteoarthritis. When you perform a deep squat, the pressure on the knee joints increases exponentially. Studies show that this pressure can reach up to 7 times your body weight when in the lowest position of the movement. Additionally, natural hip flexibility tends to decrease with age. To compensate for this limitation, many people end up curving their lower back during the movement. This compensation transfers tension to the lumbar region, an area already vulnerable after decades of use. Remember that back pain that appeared out of nowhere? Perhaps it wasn't so random after all. Another common problem is stability. With the natural decrease in muscle mass after 60, body balance becomes compromised. A deep squat requires considerable coordination. A small mistake can result in falls, which represents a much greater risk at this stage of life. I'm not saying this to scare you, but I've seen many students in this age group suffer from chronic pain by insisting on exercises their bodies no longer tolerate. And there's more: blood pressure. During deep squats, there is a significant momentary increase in blood pressure. For those already dealing with hypertension, this spike can represent an unnecessary risk. The safe alternative: the chair squat. The chair squat is a brilliant alternative that preserves practically all the benefits of the traditional squat while eliminating the risks. In this exercise, you position a stable chair behind you and perform the movement of sitting and standing without necessarily completely touching the chair. The chair serves as a natural range limiter and a safety net that drastically increases your confidence. To execute it correctly, position the chair against a wall to prevent it from sliding. Stand in front of it with your feet shoulder-width apart and slightly turned outward. Keep your chest up, activate your core, and initiate the movement by pushing your hips back as if you were going to sit. Lower yourself until it's comfortable, ideally until you almost touch the chair, and then return to the starting position, focusing on pushing through your heels. The great benefit here is that you work exactly the same muscle groups: quadriceps, glutes, hamstrings, and core, but with much less joint stress. The chair eliminates the need to lower beyond the point where your knees form a 90-degree angle, precisely where joint pressure skyrockets. Additionally, the chair provides a visual and tactile reference that significantly improves your technique. A common mistake I see is letting the knees collapse inward. Always keep your knees aligned with your toes. To start, I recommend 2 to 3 sets of 10 to 12 repetitions with a 60 to 90-second rest between them. As you gain strength and confidence, you can progress to 4 sets. The beauty of this exercise is that it is extremely functional. It directly improves your ability to sit and stand, boosting independence. Tagkulfeinfig exercise number 2. High-impact running, the cumulative trauma. Many view running as the ultimate cardiovascular exercise, a symbol of youth and vitality. However, for those who have crossed the 60-year threshold, this exercise isn't always the marvel it appears to be. What many don't realize is the cumulative impact that decades of activity cause on our musculoskeletal system. Each time your foot touches the ground during a run, your body absorbs an impact force that can reach 2 to 3 times your body weight. This force propagates through the knees, hips, and spine. Over time, this repetitive impact can lead to a series of problems, especially when our tissues no longer have the same recovery capacity. Among the most common problems are shin splints, patellar tendinitis, Achilles tendon strain, plantar fasciitis, and even stress fractures. Additionally, bone density naturally decreases with age, making bones more susceptible to fractures, a risk that simply isn't worth taking. There's also the question of balance. Running requires coordination and stability. With the natural decrease in muscle mass and changes in the vestibular system, the risk of falls increases considerably. A fall at 30 might mean a scraped knee. At 60, it can result in serious fractures, especially of the hip, which are unfortunately associated with high rates of complications. There is still an important psychological factor. Many adults feel internal pressure to continue running, associating it with maintaining youth and cardiovascular health. They end up ignoring signs of pain and discomfort, thinking, "No pain, no gain." This mentality can be dangerous when it leads to ignoring clear signals the body is sending. The safe alternatives: stationary cycling and moderate walking. I'm not saying you need to completely abandon cardiovascular activities. Quite the contrary. There are much smarter alternatives. Alternative A, the stationary bicycle. Unlike running, cycling is a low-impact exercise that practically eliminates repetitive trauma to the joints. When you pedal, your weight is supported by the seat, drastically reducing the load on knees, hips, and spine. The only mistake to avoid is setting too high resistance from the beginning, which can overload the knee joints. The bicycle works the quadriceps, glutes, and hamstrings, but in a gentler and more controlled manner. Being a seated, stable exercise, the risk of falls is also completely eliminated. I recommend starting with sessions of 15 to 20 minutes 3 times a week at moderate intensity. A good parameter is to be able to maintain a conversation with some effort. Gradually increase to 30 to 45 minutes, alternating between periods of higher and lower intensity, interval training, to maximize cardiovascular benefits. Alternative B, moderate walking. Walking regularly strengthens the heart, improves blood circulation, helps control weight and blood glucose, and strengthens bones, crucial for preventing osteoporosis. Start with 15 to 20-minute walks on flat terrain. As you feel comfortable, gradually increase the duration and add routes with slight inclines. Ideally, accumulate at least 150 minutes of walking per week according to World Health Organization recommendations. Exercise number 3. Traditional push-up, the shoulder strain. The traditional push-up, performed with the body extended and supported only on the hands and toes, is undeniably an efficient exercise for upper body development. However, for people over 60, this variation can present a series of risks. First, the traditional push-up position places a significant load on the wrists. With aging, it's common to develop conditions such as arthritis in the hand and wrist joints, making this position potentially painful. Additionally, the stabilization strength needed to keep the body in a straight line is considerable. With the natural decrease in muscle mass and core strength, many compensate with the lumbar region, resulting in back pain or more serious injuries. Another critical point is the pressure exerted on the shoulders. The traditional push-up, especially when performed with inadequate technique, like letting the elbows flare out too wide, can aggravate pre-existing problems or trigger new inflammations in the rotator cuff. The safe alternative, the incline push-up. The incline push-up is a modified version that significantly reduces the degree of difficulty and joint stress without compromising muscle benefits. In this variation, instead of supporting your hands on the floor, you support them on an elevated surface, such as a wall, counter, table, or the back of a sturdy sofa. To execute correctly, position yourself facing the chosen surface. Place your hands on it at shoulder width or slightly wider. Step back with your feet until your body forms a diagonal line with the floor. The closer to horizontal your body is, the greater the challenge. Start with a more vertical incline and gradually progress to lower surfaces. Keep your core engaged, your back straight, and lower yourself by bending your elbows until your chest approaches the surface. Then push back, focusing on using the chest muscles, triceps, and shoulders. This variation works the same muscle groups, chest, triceps, anterior deltoid, and core, but the load on the joints is significantly lower, and you can easily adjust the difficulty. A common mistake is letting the elbows flare out too wide. Keep your elbows at an angle of approximately 45 degrees relative to your body. Another frequent mistake is not maintaining body alignment. For beginners, I recommend 3 sets of 8 to 12 repetitions 3 times a week with 60 to 90-second intervals. Sutter 2, exercise number 4. Lying leg raise, the back compressor. The lying leg raise, where you lie on your back and lift your extended legs, is frequently recommended to work the lower abs. However, this exercise can be particularly problematic for people over 60 for several important reasons. What many don't realize is that a large part of the work is done by the hip flexors, not the abdominals. This is relevant after 60, as the hip flexors tend to be chronically shortened due to prolonged sitting. When these shortened muscles are strengthened without proper stretching, they can contribute to an anterior pelvic tilt, which in turn increases lumbar lordosis, exaggerated lower back curvature. Another critical problem is the pressure exerted on the lumbar spine. If the abdominals aren't strong enough, the lumbar region tends to arch, increasing compression on the intervertebral discs. For people who already have some degree of disc degeneration or spinal stenosis, this movement can trigger or aggravate lower back pain. There's also the factor of intra-abdominal pressure. This increase in pressure can exacerbate conditions such as hernias or abdominal diastasis. The safe alternative, the seated march. The seated march is a brilliant exercise that effectively works the abdominal muscles, especially the transverse abdominis, without overloading the lumbar spine or the hip flexors. It mimics walking but is performed while seated, eliminating impact and drastically reducing stress on the lumbar region. To perform correctly, sit on the edge of a firm chair with your spine erect. Engage your core as if pulling your navel toward your spine. Maintaining this contraction, lift one knee toward your chest, then lower it and repeat with the other knee, alternating in a controlled movement. The movement should be controlled and relatively slow. To increase intensity, you can hold the elevated knee position for 1 to 2 seconds or partially extend the leg. This exercise works the abdominal muscles and promotes coordination between breathing and movement. Being performed while seated, it completely eliminates the risk of falls and reduces pressure on joints. A common mistake is letting the spine curve. Keep your chest up and spine in a neutral position. Another frequent mistake is using momentum instead of abdominal strength. I recommend starting with 3 sets of 10 to 15 repetitions for each side with 60-second intervals. A 65-year-old student who suffered from chronic lower back pain reported significant improvement after replacing traditional abdominal exercises with the seated march. After 6 weeks, she noticed not only a decrease in pain, but also an improvement in posture. If you liked this and also want to discover 6 isometric postures that are capable of completely changing the lower part of your body, we've left a video appearing right now on the screen. Don't miss it. Thank you for watching until here. And may God bless you, my friend. Stay strong, stay steady, and I'll see you in the next one.